The human fleet gathered in the darkness between stars. 17 ships remained from the original 20. Against them stood the Thraxian invasion force, over 60 warships led by their command vessel, the Decimator. It was a massive ship, 5 kilometers long, bristling with weapons and armor. Haran stared at the tactical display, trying to understand how they could possibly win. The numbers didn't make sense. 17 against 60. It should be suicide. The key is the command ship, Commander Haywan explained over the fleet-wide channel. The Thraxians coordinate everything through it. Take it down and their fleet becomes confused, scattered. They'll retreat to regroup. How do we get through 60 ships to reach it? Someone asked. We don't go through them, Daejung said. We go around. Make them chase us. Split their attention. While they're focused on us, a strike team hits the command ship from an unexpected angle. Who's on the strike team? Haran asked, though she already knew the answer. You are, Haywan said. Your ship and 2 human fighters. You'll approach from below the orbital plane, using debris from the destroyed colonies to mask your signatures. The Thraxians won't expect an attack from that direction. It was crazy, but everything about the past week had been crazy. Haran looked at Kyung-soo. Her co-pilot nodded. They were in this together. The plan began with a message. Haran broadcasted on open channels, making sure every ship in the system could hear. Attention all vessels in the outer colonies. This is Haran of the cargo ship Morningstar. You are not alone. You are not abandoned. Humanity has returned. Human forces are engaging the Thraxian invasion fleet. All civilian vessels should evacuate to save coordinates. All military vessels, if you wish to fight, coordinate with the human fleet. Humanity remembers. Humanity protects. Silence followed her broadcast. Then slowly responses came in. Colonial defense forces, small and outgunned, began moving to join the human fleet. They were tiny ships, barely armed, but their crews were brave enough to try. This is Captain Lee of the defense ship Courage. We stand with humanity. Station Praxis Defense Wing moving to support. Medical ship Healing Hand. We're not fighters, but we'll help with rescue operations. More and more voices joined in. Within an hour, the human fleet had grown to 30 ships, still outnumbered but no longer alone. Haran watched the Thraxian fleet react to this development. They hadn't expected resistance. They had thought the colonies would be easy prey. Now they faced humans, the species that shouldn't exist, backed by allies who refused to surrender. All ships begin attack run, Haywan ordered. Remember your training. Stay mobile, protect each other, and make them remember why they used to fear human fighters. The battle began like an explosion of light. Human ships moved first, diving toward the Thraxian fleet in coordinated wings. Daejung led one wing, Youngmi another. They flew patterns that seemed impossible, dodging weapons fire, striking at weak points, always moving. The Thraxians responded with overwhelming firepower, space filled with energy beams and missiles. 2 colonial defense ships were destroyed immediately, their shields unable to handle the assault. But the others fought on, inspired by the humans' courage. Strike team, move now, Haywan ordered. While they're distracted, Haran guided her ship downward, away from the main battle. Taeho and another human pilot named Jiwoo flew escort. They moved slowly, carefully, hiding among the debris of shattered colony stations. Each piece of wreckage was a reminder of lives lost, homes destroyed. It made Haran's resolve stronger. Approaching command ship ventral side, Jiwoo reported. Minimal defenses. They're focused on the main battle. The Decimator loomed above them, a massive wall of metal and weapons. Haran could see its engines, powerful enough to move the enormous vessel through space. Those engines were their target. Remember the plan, Taeho said. We hit the main power coupling. That disables their primary weapons and coordination systems. They'll be blind and defenseless for several minutes. Several minutes against 60 warships, Kyung-soo muttered. This had better work. They rose from the debris field like predators from ambush. 3 small ships against 1 massive vessel. The Decimator's point defense systems activated, but they were too slow. Haran launched her entire payload of missiles, all of them targeting the power coupling Taeho had identified. The missiles struck home. Explosions rippled across the command ship's hull. Power fluctuated, then failed completely. The massive vessel went dark, dead in space. Direct hit, Taeho shouted. Command systems are down. Across the battlefield, the Thraxian fleet faltered. Without coordination from the command ship, individual vessels didn't know what to do. Some continued fighting. Others hesitated. A few began retreating. All ships press the attack, Hay-Wan ordered. Don't give them time to recover. But the Thraxians weren't finished. A massive warship, the second largest in their fleet, turned toward Harin's position. Its commander had apparently decided to take revenge for the command ship. Harin, break left. Daejung's voice cut through the chaos. Harin pulled hard on her controls, but she was too slow. The enemy warship's weapons locked onto her. She watched the firing sequence begin, knowing she couldn't dodge in time. Then Daejung was there. His fighter positioned itself between Harin's ship and the enemy. The weapons fire that should have destroyed Harin struck his fighter instead. Shields flared and failed. His hull took damage. Alarms screamed across their shared communication channel. Daejung! Youngmi's voice was sharp with fear. I'm okay, Daejung replied. Though his ship was clearly not okay. It was leaking atmosphere and power. Just a little scratched. Harin didn't think. She reversed course, flying directly at Daejung's crippled fighter. I'm extracting you. Deploy your emergency beacon. Negative, Morningstar. Get clear. Complete the mission. The mission is complete. And I'm not leaving you. She activated her ship's magnetic grapples, the ones normally used for cargo containers. They latched onto Daejung's fighter, pulling it close to her hull. It wasn't a proper extraction, but it would work. You're insane, Daejung said, but she heard gratitude in his voice. I learned from the best, Harin replied. She pulled away from the enemy warship. Daejung's damaged fighter attached to her hull. Taeho and Jiwoo provided cover, their weapons keeping the enemy at bay. Above them, the battle was turning. With their command ship disabled and their second-in-command focused on Harin, the Thraxian fleet was losing cohesion. Human ships and their colonial allies pressed the advantage, striking hard and fast. Thraxian vessels are breaking off, someone reported. They're retreating! Commander Hay-Wan's voice carried triumph and relief. All ships do not pursue. Let them go. Our objective was to save the colonies, not destroy the Thraxians. We've done what we came to do. The shooting stopped. The Thraxian fleet jumped away, limping and defeated. Silence fell across the battlefield, broken only by damage reports and rescue calls. Harin flew her ship with Daejung's fighter still attached, back to the rally point. Youngmi was waiting, her face pale with worry. When Daejung emerged from his damaged craft, Youngmi hugged him so hard he gasped. Don't ever do that again, Youngmi said. No promises, Daejung replied. Then he looked at Harin. Thank you for coming back for me. You saved my life first, Harin said. I was just returning the favor. Over the next hours, the fleet regrouped and assessed damage. They had lost 8 ships total, with over 100 human lives ended. But they had saved thousands of colonists and stopped an invasion that would have killed millions. News of the battle spread quickly. Human ships thought to be extinct had appeared and fought alongside colonial forces. Harin's broadcast had been recorded and repeated across 1,000 systems. Questions were asked. Investigations were launched. The Galactic Council demanded answers. Commander Hay-Wan gave them answers. She broadcast a message to the entire galaxy, her voice clear and strong. I am Commander Hay-Wan of the Human Defense Fleet. 200 years ago, the Galactic Council betrayed humanity. They traded our colony worlds for peace with the Krell Empire. Millions of humans died because the Council decided we were acceptable losses. We did not forget. We did not forgive. But we also did not let betrayal turn us into monsters. When the outer colonies faced invasion, when innocent people needed help, we answered, not because we owed the galaxy anything, but because it was right. Humanity is no longer hiding. We are here. We are watching. And we will protect those who cannot protect themselves, regardless of what their governments did centuries ago. This is our promise. This is who we are, the message ended. Across the galaxy, people watched and wondered what it meant. Some feared humanity's return. Others hoped for it. The Council scrambled to respond, not sure whether to apologize or demand submission. Harin didn't care about politics. She stood on the observation deck of Station Taeguk, looking out at the stars. Beside her stood Kyungsu, Youngmi, Taeho, and Daejung, who was bandaged but alive. What happens now? Kyungsu asked. Now the galaxy has to decide what kind of place it wants to be, Youngmi said, and we have to decide how much we're willing to help them. I think we already decided, Taeho said with a slight smile. When we came out of hiding, Daejung looked at Harin.
What about you?
The warning lights on Taemin's console flashed red. He rubbed his tired eyes and leaned forward, checking the readings again. A distress beacon was pulsing from somewhere in the Forbidden Sector, that dead zone where old battles had left nothing but floating wreckage and radiation. He shouldn't go. Protocol was clear about Forbidden Sectors, but Taemin had been a soldier once before he became a freight pilot, hauling supplies between colonies. He knew what distress beacons meant. Someone was dying out there. His fingers moved across the controls before he could think too hard about it. The cargo ship turned, engines humming as it changed course toward the signal. The beacon led him to an abandoned research station, a massive ring of metal spinning slowly around a dying star. The star's light was dim and orange, casting strange shadows across the docking bay. Something else was there too, a ship unlike anything Taemin had ever seen. It was sleek and white, with curves that seemed to flow like water frozen in time, but it was damaged, crashed into the side of the research station with metal torn and sparking. Taemin docked carefully and grabbed his emergency kit. The station's air was breathable, barely. His scanner showed life signs inside the alien vessel. One life sign weak and fading. The alien ship's entrance was sealed, but emergency overrides were universal in most civilizations. Taemin found the panel and worked his tools into it, bypassing locks that were probably older than his entire colony. The door hissed open, releasing air that smelled like flowers and ozone. Inside, everything glowed with soft blue light. The corridors were tall, built for someone larger than him. He followed his scanner deeper into the ship until he reached what looked like a medical bay. She was there, floating in some kind of stasis field that flickered and sparked. Even injured and unconscious, she was stunning. Her skin was pale blue-white and she stood at least 7 feet tall. Her features were sharp and elegant with high cheekbones and a strong jaw. She wore armor that looked like it was made from crystal and metal combined, though it was cracked and stained with purple blood. Taemin's scanner screamed warnings, multiple injuries, internal damage. The stasis field was failing. She had maybe an hour left, perhaps less. He worked fast, pulling out his basic medical supplies. Human medicine, designed for human bodies, but biology was biology at its core. He found her pulse points, injected universal stabilizers, and used his emergency patches to seal the worst wounds. His hands moved with the practiced efficiency of his military days, when he'd patched up soldiers in the field. The stasis field gave out completely just as he finished. She fell, and Taemin caught her, staggering under her weight. He dragged her to a bench and kept working, monitoring her vital signs with his scanner, adjusting dosages, doing everything he could with his limited supplies. An hour passed, then 2. Finally, her breathing steadied. The purple blood stopped seeping through the patches. Taemin sat back against the wall, exhausted, and let himself close his eyes for just a moment. When he opened them, she was staring at him. Her eyes were silver, completely silver with no pupils, and they studied him with an intensity that made him freeze. She sat up slowly, wincing, and touched the patches on her wounds. Then she looked at his medical kit, at him and around at her damaged ship. "You are human," she said. Her voice was like music, each word perfectly pronounced. "How did you breach Velhari technology?" Taemin cleared his throat. "Emergency override codes are pretty standard across most civilizations." "You were dying. Didn't think you'd mind." She continued to stare at him, and he felt something brush against his mind. A presence gentle but powerful, like standing in front of a massive wave that could crush you but chose not to. "You saved my life," she said slowly, as if the concept surprised her. "A human saved me. Is that a problem?" Taemin asked. She tilted her head. "My people are the Velhari. We are the dominant power in 7 galaxies. We have never been conquered. We have never been bested in war. We are telepaths, warriors, and rulers of countless worlds." She paused, those silver eyes studying him. "And yet a primitive human with basic medicine managed to stabilize injuries that should have killed me." Taemin felt his temper stir. "Well, this primitive human just saved your life, so maybe a thank you would be nice." To his surprise, she laughed. It was a short, sharp sound, but genuine. "You are either very brave or very foolish. Most species tremble before the Velhari." She touched her chest near her heart. "I am Lyra, queen of the Velhari Empire, and you have invoked an ancient tradition of my people, whether you know it or not." "What tradition?" Taemin asked warily. "You saved my life when I was helpless. In Velhari law, I am now in your debt. I must grant you one wish, anything within my considerable power." Lyra gestured around at her damaged ship. "Though at the moment my power is somewhat limited by my current situation." Taman stood and stretched his sore muscles. We should probably focus on getting you out of here. This station is falling into the star's gravity well. We have maybe 12 hours before it's too late. Lyra tried to stand and immediately swayed. Taman caught her arm, steadying her. She looked at his hand on her arm, then at his face as if no one had dared touch her in a very long time. Your ship can be repaired? He asked. Not in 12 hours. The core is damaged. Then you're coming with me. My cargo ship isn't fancy, but it'll get us out of here. And then? Lyra asked. Then I guess I'll take you wherever you need to go. Taman started gathering his supplies. Think about your wish thing. Not sure what I'd want from an alien queen, but I'll let you know if I figure it out. Lyra watched him work, a strange expression on her face. You saved my life, you are willing to give me passage, and you are not demanding payment or reward immediately. You are an unusual human, Taman. You know my name? She tapped her temple. Telepath, remember? It was written clearly in your surface thoughts. She moved toward the door, still unsteady. Very well. I accept your offer of passage. But know this, human. The Velhari always pay their debts. You will have your wish whenever you choose to claim it. Together, they made their way through the dying station back to Taman's ship. Behind them, the alien vessel sparked and groaned as the station's orbit continued to decay. Taman didn't look back. He had a queen to save, a station to escape, and absolutely no idea what he'd just gotten himself into. The universe, he thought, had a strange sense of humor. Taman's cargo ship wasn't built for comfort. It had a small cockpit, a tiny galley, and 2 sleeping pods that were barely bigger than coffins. He gave Lyra the slightly larger pod and tried not to think about how an alien queen was sleeping in his storage area. 3 days into their journey, he realized queens didn't sleep much. Lyra spent most of her time in the cockpit, watching the stars slip past. Her wounds were healing faster than should be possible, the purple bruises fading to pale blue-white. But she still moved carefully, and Taman noticed she pressed her hand to her ribs when she thought he wasn't looking. You need to rest, he said, bringing her a cup of something that passed for tea on his ship. She accepted it with a nod. I have rested for 3 days. That is more than I have allowed myself in years. Queens don't get vacations. Queens who take vacations often find themselves no longer queens. Lyra sipped the tea and made a face. What is this? Horrible, isn't it? It's made from synthetic compounds and recycled water. Welcome to the life of a freight pilot. Taman dropped into the co-pilot chair. So what happened? How does a queen end up crashed on an abandoned station? Lyra was quiet for a long moment. I was on a diplomatic mission to the outer reaches. Someone sabotaged my ship. The navigation systems failed. Life support began shutting down, and I crashed into the nearest structure. She looked at him with those unsettling silver eyes. I was there for 3 weeks before you found me. 3 weeks? Taman felt sick. In that stasis field. It was the only thing keeping me alive. But it was failing. She set down the teacup. Tell me, Taman, why did you answer the distress beacon? Your ship's logs show you were behind schedule. This detour will cost you money and time. Yet you came. He shrugged. Someone needed help. Just like that? Someone needed help. So you risked forbidden space, your cargo, your life to investigate. Seemed like the right thing to do. Taman checked their course, not comfortable with the way she was looking at him. I was a soldier once. Lost my whole family when our colony was attacked. I couldn't save them. But I can save other people when I get the chance. Lyra's expression softened. I am sorry for your loss. It was a long time ago. It wasn't, not really, but Taman had gotten good at pretending. Over the next few days, they fell into an easy routine. Taman would pilot. Lyra would sit in the cockpit and tell him stories about her empire. She'd been queen for over 200 years, she said, and Taman tried not to show his shock. The Velhari lived long lives, far longer than humans. She told him about her people, the telepaths who could read thoughts and share memories. She told him about the vast empire, thousands of worlds united under Velhari rule. She told him about the politics, the noble houses constantly fighting for power, the assassination attempts that came as regularly as seasons. Don't you have family? Taman asked. Someone you trust? I had a sister once. She tried to poison me to take the throne. I had her exiled. Lyra's voice was flat, emotionless. Trust is a luxury queens cannot afford. That sounds lonely. It is survival. Taman wanted to argue, but he knew about survival. Sometimes you did what you had to do. On the 5th day, the proximity alarm screamed. 3 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly in their path. Pirates judging by their mismatched hulls and weapons. "They're scanning us," Tamin said, his hands already moving across the controls. "They know you're here." Lyra's face went hard. "The same people who sabotaged my ship. They are making sure I never return home." The pirate ships opened fire. Tamin threw the cargo ship into a dive, dodging plasma bolts that lit up the space around them. His ship wasn't built for combat, but he'd been a military pilot. He knew tricks. "Hold on!" he shouted. He flew straight at the nearest pirate ship, then cut all power at the last second. They drifted, momentum carrying them past the pirates' weapons range. Tamin fired up the engines and banked hard, putting the pirate ship between them and the other 2 attackers. "Clever," Lyra said. She had one hand braced against the console, the other pressed to her healing ribs. "But they will adjust. Then we need something they won't expect." Tamin looked at her. "Can you do that telepathy thing? Get in their heads? I am still injured. My range is limited." "How limited?" "I would need to be very close. And it will hurt." "Do it." Tamin flew straight at the lead pirate ship, engines screaming. The pirates thought he was ramming them. They were wrong. At the last moment, he spun the cargo ship, presenting its armored belly to the pirates, and fired the emergency retro rockets. They stopped dead in space right next to the pirate vessel. Lyra closed her eyes and Tamin felt that wave of power wash over him again. This time it wasn't gentle. The air crackled with energy. Blood began dripping from Lyra's nose, but she didn't stop. The pirate ship's lights flickered and died. Its weapons powered down. Through the viewport, Tamin saw figures moving in panic inside the bridge. "Go," Lyra gasped. "No." Tamin didn't argue. He fired the engines and they shot away. The other 2 pirate ships tried to follow, but without their leader coordinating the attack, they were clumsy. Tamin lost them in an asteroid field and jumped to faster-than-light speed the moment they were clear. When the danger had passed, he found Lyra collapsed in her chair, silver blood trickling from her nose and ears. "Hey, stay with me." Tamin grabbed his medical kit. "What do you need?" "Just rest," she whispered. "But first I need to do something." Before he could ask what, she reached out and pressed her hand to his forehead. The world exploded into sensation. Tamin saw through Lyra's eyes. He felt her pain, her exhaustion, but also her surprise. She was in his mind, seeing his memories of the fight. His split-second decisions, his creative tactics, his absolute determination to keep her safe. And underneath it all, his loneliness. Years of it, carefully buried, kept hidden from everyone, including himself. Then she was gone, pulling her hand back. They both sat in silence, breathing hard. "Why did you do that?" Tamin asked. "I needed to coordinate our defense. Telepathic link is the fastest way." Lyra wiped the blood from her face. "I saw your memories, Tamin. Your loss, your pain, your loneliness. It mirrors my own." "I'm not lonely," he lied. "Yes, you are. Just as I am." She stood slowly, steadying herself on the chair. "You asked why I seem surprised by your kindness. It is because I have not experienced genuine kindness in 200 years. Everyone wants something from me. My power, my throne, my favor. But you saved me simply because I needed help. You fought for me because it was the right thing to do. Not because you want something from me." Tamin didn't know what to say to that. "You still have not claimed your wish," Lyra said softly. "Most would have demanded it immediately. I'm still thinking about it." She smiled just a little. "Take your time, Tamin. We have a long journey ahead." They did. 6 more days to reach Velhari space. 6 more days where a queen and a pilot learned that maybe, just maybe, they weren't as alone as they thought. The Velhari homeworld took Tamin's breath away. The planet was covered in towers that reached into the clouds, built from crystal and metal that caught the light of 3 moons. Cities sprawled across continents connected by bridges that seemed to float in the air without support. It was beautiful and impossible, like something from a dream. "Welcome to Velhari Prime," Lyra said quietly. She stood beside him in the cockpit, her posture straight and regal now. The wounded queen he'd been traveling with was gone. This was the ruler of an empire, and she looked like it. They were immediately surrounded by military escort ships, sleek fighters that made Tamin's cargo hauler look like a flying brick. They were guided to the royal palace, a massive structure that rose from the center of the capital city like a mountain made of light. The landing was smooth, but Tamin could feel tension in the air. Soldiers lined the platform, their weapons held ready. Officials in flowing robes waited, their faces carefully neutral. Nobody looked happy to see Lyra. "Stay close to me," Lyra murmured as they descended from the ship. "My absence has created complications." That was an understatement. The moment they entered the palace, Taemin realized something was very wrong. The officials bowed to Lyra, but their greetings were cold, formal, careful. A tall Velhari male stepped forward, his robes more elaborate than the others. His silver eyes studied Lyra with barely concealed hostility. "My queen," he said, the title sounding like an insult. "We were told you were dead. How fortunate that the reports were exaggerated." "Lord Keth," Lyra replied, her voice like ice. "How kind of you to greet me personally. I trust you have been keeping my throne warm in my absence?" Keth's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I have been serving the Empire, as always. The council appointed me regent after your ship was lost. There were decisions that needed to be made. And now I have returned, so your service as regent is no longer required." Lyra moved past him. "I will address the council within the hour. Prepare them." "Of course, my queen. But there is the matter of your companion." Keth looked at Taemin like he was examining an unusual insect. "A human? In the royal palace? How curious." "This human saved my life," Lyra said sharply. "He is under my protection. Anyone who harms him answers to me personally." "Is that clear?" Keth bowed, but Taemin saw the anger flash in his silver eyes. "Perfectly clear, my queen." As they walked deeper into the palace, Taemin became aware of the stairs. Every Velari they passed looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and contempt. He heard whispers in their musical language, words he didn't understand but could guess the meaning of. "They think you're my pet," Lyra said quietly, reading his thoughts. "Or my servant. Humans are not common in Velhari space. Should I bow or bark?" Taemin muttered. Lyra's lips twitched. "Your defiance is showing, pilot." "Good." She gave him a room near her own quarters. It was larger than his entire cargo ship, with windows that looked out over the Crystal City. Taemin felt completely out of place among the elegant furniture and flowing fabrics. He was a freight pilot in cargo pants and a worn jacket, standing in a palace built for gods. A servant brought him formal clothes, Velhari style, flowing and uncomfortable, but at least they fit. When he looked in the mirror, he almost didn't recognize himself. The council meeting was worse than he'd expected. Taemin wasn't allowed inside, but he waited in the hall and heard the shouting through the heavy doors. Voices raised in anger, in challenge, in barely controlled fury. When Lyra emerged 2 hours later, she looked exhausted. "What happened?" Taemin asked. "Keth has been busy during my absence. He's allied himself with several noble houses and consolidated military power. He claims he was acting in the Empire's best interest, but everyone knows he was preparing to take the throne permanently." Lyra walked to the windows, staring out at her city. "He's issued a formal challenge. I must prove my fitness to rule in the ancient games or abdicate." "What are these games?" "Tests of strength, strategy, telepathic power. They were designed thousands of years ago to ensure only the strongest rule. I am still healing, Taemin. I am not at full strength." "Then refuse." "You're the queen." "Tell him no. If I refuse, I am seen as weak. The noble houses will tear the Empire apart fighting for power." Lyra turned to face him. "I have no choice. The games begin in 3 days." Those 3 days passed too quickly. Taemin watched from the stands as Lyra faced trial after trial. Mental challenges where she had to solve impossible puzzles while under psychic attack. Physical tests where she fought against trained warriors. She won them all but barely. Taemin could see her weakening, see the pain she hid behind her regal mask. The final trial was combat. Single combat against a champion of Keth's choosing. The champion was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, covered in scars and armor. He moved like death itself. Lyra stepped into the arena. She wore light armor and carried a blade that shimmered with energy. She looked small compared to her opponent. Fragile. The fight began. Lyra was fast, faster than seemed possible, but the champion was stronger. Each blow she blocked shook her entire body. Each time she struck, he barely seemed to notice. The crowd watched in silence as their queen fought for her throne. Then Taemin saw it. The floor of the arena. The way certain tiles were slightly raised. The champion's positioning, always driving Lyra toward specific spots. The angle of the sun reflecting off the champion's blade. This wasn't just a fight. It was a trap. Taman didn't think. He vaulted over the railing and ran into the arena, shouting a warning. Security rushed to stop him, but it was too late. Lyra heard his voice and dodged left instead of right, just as one of the raised tiles exploded with energy. The crowd erupted in chaos. Keth's face went pale with rage. The champion turned toward Taman, raising his weapon. Lyra moved faster than thought. Her blade found the gap in the champion's armor, and he fell. She spun toward Keith in the royal box, her silver eyes blazing with fury. "Assassination," she said, her voice carrying across the arena. During the sacred games, the penalty is death. Keth tried to run. He didn't make it far. Lyra's guards seized him along with a dozen nobles who had been part of his plot. The evidence was clear once they looked. The sabotaged arena tiles, the bribed officials, the conspiracy to murder the queen. But in the confusion, one of Keth's allies threw a blade. It spun through the air, aimed at Lyra's unprotected back. Taman saw it happening as if in slow motion. He threw himself forward, putting his body between the blade and the queen. The blade hit him in the shoulder, and pain exploded through his chest. He fell, heard Lyra screaming his name, felt her hands on his face. Then the world went dark. When he woke, he was in the medical facility. Lyra was sitting beside his bed, her hand holding his. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "You jumped in front of a blade meant for me," she said quietly. "Why?" "Someone needed help," Taman said, his voice rough. "Seemed simple enough." Lyra laughed, but there were tears in her silver eyes. "You are the most foolish, brave, impossible human I've ever met. Is that your way of saying thank you?" "That is my way of saying you saved my life again. And I am beginning to understand that you do not do these things for reward or recognition. You do them because you are, at your core, good." She squeezed his hand gently. "Rest now. I will remain here until you wake. You're a queen. Don't you have Empire stuff to do?" "The Empire can wait," Lyra said firmly. "Right now I am exactly where I need to be." Taman closed his eyes, a small smile on his face. The universe, he thought again, definitely had a strange sense of humor. Taman's wound should have killed him. The blade had been poisoned with something designed specifically to kill Velhari. That it worked on humans too was almost accidental. Almost. The medical facility was the most advanced in the Empire, but even they struggled. Human and Velhari biology were different enough that their treatments barely worked on him. He drifted in and out of consciousness, fever burning through his body, pain eating at his insides. Through it all, Lyra was there. He felt her presence even when he couldn't see her. That gentle telepathic touch like cool water on burning skin. She stayed in his mind, keeping him anchored when the pain tried to pull him under. It should have been impossible. Velhari telepathy didn't work well on humans, the neural pathways were too different. But somehow Lyra made it work. On the third day, when the doctors told her there was nothing more they could do, that Taman was dying, Lyra made a choice. She did something forbidden, something that hadn't been done in centuries. She went deeper. Taman felt her dive into his mind, past the surface thoughts, past the memories, into the very core of who he was. It was intimate beyond anything physical. Every secret, every fear, every moment of his life was laid bare. His childhood in the colony. The day the raiders attacked and he couldn't save his family. His years in the military, trying to make sense of senseless violence. His loneliness carried like a weight he'd learned to ignore. And she shared herself in return. 200 years of memories flooded into Taman's mind. He saw through Lyra's eyes as she took the throne, barely more than a child by Velhari standards. He felt her joy at first, the pride of ruling, the satisfaction of bringing peace to warring worlds. Then slowly he felt it sour. The assassination attempts, the betrayals, her sister's poison, delivered in a cup of wine, the guards she'd trusted turning their weapons on her, the lovers who'd only wanted her power. Century after century of ruling alone, trusting no one, loved by none. They saw each other completely. Every flaw and fear and hidden hope. And in that moment of total vulnerability, something changed. The connection that had been a lifeline became something else. Something neither of them had expected. When Taman finally opened his eyes, really opened them, he found Lyra collapsed in the chair beside his bed. She looked terrible. Her silver hair was tangled. Her face was pale and blood had dried under her nose and ears. She'd used so much telepathic power that she'd nearly killed herself keeping him alive. "Hey," he said softly. Her eyes snapped open. For a moment she just stared at him. Then she reached out with a trembling hand and touched his face as if confirming he was real. "You came back," she whispered. "Yeah, apparently I'm too stubborn to die." Lyra laughed, but it turned into a sob. She pressed her forehead to his hand, her shoulders shaking. Taman realized with shock that she was crying. This ancient queen, ruler of galaxies, was crying over him. "I thought I had lost you," she said. "I went into your mind to keep you alive, and I saw everything. All of your pain. All of your goodness. And I realized that in 200 years I have never met anyone like you. Lyra, let me finish." She raised her head, silver eyes meeting his. "You have saved my life 3 times now. You have asked for nothing in return. You have shown me kindness without agenda, bravery without expectation of reward, and loyalty without being bound by oath. You have reminded me what it means to be more than a queen. You have reminded me what it means to be a person." Taman struggled to sit up. Every muscle hurt, but he managed it. "You saved my life too. We're even, are we?" Lyra stood pacing to the window. "Taman, you still have your wish. I vowed to grant you anything within my power. Wealth beyond measure. Your own planet. Technology that would make your people the most advanced in the galaxy. Life extension treatments that could make you live for centuries. Anything you want, I will give it to you." He was quiet for a long moment, thinking. What did he want? He'd been alone for so long, moving from job to job, system to system, never staying anywhere long enough to form connections. His family was gone. He had no home, nothing tying him to anywhere. Except maybe here. Maybe her. "I wish to stay with you," Taimin said. Lyra turned, shock written across her face. "What? I want to stay." "Here with you?" He took a breath, committing to the words. "These past few weeks, traveling with you, getting to know you, I've been less lonely than I've been in years. And when I was dying, when I felt you in my mind, I saw that you're lonely too. Maybe we could be less lonely together. You don't know what you're asking." Lyra's voice shook. "Taman, I am immortal by your standards. I will live for thousands of years. You are human. You will age and die while I remain. Do you understand what that means?" "I understand." "No, you don't." She moved closer, her expression intense. "The Vilhari bond for life. If I accept you, truly accept you, it would mean opening my mind to you completely, letting you see all of me, the good and the terrible, trusting you with everything I am, and when you die, I will feel it. I will carry that loss for centuries." "Maybe that's a risk worth taking," Taman said quietly. "For you, perhaps. You will live a human lifetime, happy, and then you will be gone. But I will remain, carrying the memory of you, the loss of you for millennia." "How is that fair?" "Since when is life fair?" Taman reached for her hand. "Lyra, I saw inside your mind too. I saw 200 years of loneliness, 200 years of not trusting anyone, of ruling alone, of having no one who sees you as anything other than a crown and a throne. Is that what you want for the next 200 years? The next 1,000? I want—" Lyra stopped, her voice breaking. "I don't know what I want anymore. Before I met you, I was certain. Power, control, survival. But now you're scared," Taman said gently. "You're scared of wanting something you can't control, someone you can't command. You're scared of being vulnerable with someone who might actually matter." "Yes," she admitted. "I am terrified." "Good, that means it's real." Lyra pulled her hand away, hugging herself. "I need time to think. This is not a decision I can make lightly." "Take all the time you need," Tamin said. "I'm not going anywhere." But that wasn't entirely true. Over the next few days, as Tamin recovered, he learned just how serious the situation was. The noble houses were in chaos after Keth's betrayal. Several wanted Taman removed from the palace, seeing him as an embarrassing reminder of the queen's weakness. Others were already plotting new schemes, new attempts at power. And Lyra was caught in the middle, trying to hold her empire together while dealing with feelings she hadn't allowed herself to have in 2 centuries. Taman watched her from the windows of his room, saw her in the gardens below, always alone, always thinking. He'd asked for something impossible, he knew. But somehow he couldn't bring himself to regret it. Because for the first time in years he wanted something, not just survival, not just to get through another day. He wanted a future. He wanted her. The question was, did she want him too? And more importantly, was she brave enough to take the risk? Taman spent the time recovering and learning about Vilhari politics, which was like trying to understand a knife fight in the dark. Everyone smiled, everyone bowed, and everyone seemed to be planning something. Servants whispered in corners. Guards watched him with suspicious eyes. Nobles passed him in the halls without acknowledging his existence. He was alone in a palace full of people, and he was starting to understand why Lyra had been lonely for 200 years. On the 6th day, she finally came to his room. She looked different, harder somehow, like she'd put her armor back on, not the physical kind, the emotional walls that kept everyone at a distance. "Walk with me," she said. They walked through the palace gardens, past fountains that flowed upward and flowers that glowed in the twilight. Lyra was silent until they reached a quiet corner, far from listening ears and watching eyes. "I have been thinking about your wish," she said finally. "About what you asked for. And I must be honest with you, Taman. What you want is impossible. Because I'm human. Because you would die." Lyra turned to face him. "The Velhari bond for life. It is not just words. When we commit to someone, we join our minds, our life forces. We feel what they feel, share what they experience. It is beautiful and terrible in equal measure. That doesn't sound impossible. For humans, it is. Our lifespans are too different. You would age and die within a century, maybe less. I would feel your death as if it were my own. The pain would be unbearable for a telepathic bond. Some Velhari have gone mad from such losses." Taman felt his hope crumble. "So that's it? You're saying no?" "I am saying it cannot work the way you imagine." Lyra's expression softened. "But there may be another way." A woman appeared from the shadows, moving so silently that Taman jumped. She was Velhari, older than Lyra, with silver hair braided with crystals. Her robes marked her as someone important. "This is Lady Hana," Lyra said. "She is my oldest advisor and one of the few people I trust. She has been researching options." Lady Hana bowed slightly to Taemin, her silver eyes studying him with interest. "You are the human who saved our queen twice." "3 times, technically," Taemin said. A smile flickered across Hana's face. "Indeed. Her Majesty has asked me to investigate the ancient laws, the old ways that are no longer practiced. I have found something, though it comes with significant risk." "What is it?" Lyra asked. "The bonding of equals," Hana said. "It was used thousands of years ago when Velhari bonded with beings from other species. The ritual extends the partner's lifespan and grants them limited telepathic abilities. It would allow Taemin to live as long as you do, Majesty." Hope flared in Taemin's chest. "That's perfect. Why isn't this done anymore?" "Because of the price," Hana said quietly. "The bonding ties both life forces together completely. If one dies, so does the other. No Velhari queen has accepted such vulnerability in over a millennium. It would make you a target, Taemin. Anyone who wanted to kill the queen would only need to kill you. A human with no telepathic defenses, no training in combat, no protection beyond what guards can provide. And there are many who would want our queen dead," Lyra added, her voice tight. "The noble houses, rival empires, assassins for hire. They have failed to kill me for 200 years because I am powerful and careful. But you would be vulnerable. Easy to reach." Taemin understood what she wasn't saying. By bonding with him, she would be creating her own weakness. A simple human who could be killed to destroy her. "It's a risk," he admitted. "But isn't everything?" "Not like this." Lyra turned away from him. "Taemin, I have survived for 2 centuries because I trust no one completely. I keep everyone at a distance. I protect myself above all else. What you're asking would require me to abandon every survival instinct I have, to trust you with my life literally." "Yes," Taemin said. "That's exactly what I'm asking." "Why?" Lyra spun back to face him and he saw fear in her silver eyes. "Why would you ask this of me? Why would you want to tie your life to mine, knowing the danger, knowing the burden?" "Because I've been alone long enough," Taemin said simply. "Because when I was dying and our minds touched, I saw all of you. The good parts and the hard parts. The queen and the woman underneath the crown. And I wanted more of that, more of you. You saw my memories, my cruelty, my coldness, the things I've done to survive. I saw someone who's been hurt over and over and still keeps fighting. Someone who's been alone for so long she's forgotten what connection feels like. I saw someone worth knowing, worth staying for." Lyra closed her eyes. "You don't understand what you'd be giving up. A normal life, a human life. You could return to your people, find a human partner, grow old naturally. Is that what you want? For me to leave? I want—" She opened her eyes and they were bright with unshed tears. "I want to not be afraid. I want to be brave enough to take this risk. But I don't know if I can. Lady Hana spoke quietly. Majesty, may I speak plainly? Lyra nodded. You have been alone for 200 years. You have survived, yes, but you have not lived. This human asks for nothing but your company. He wants no throne, no power, no empire. He simply wants you. When was the last time anyone wanted you for yourself, and not what you could give them? Never, Lyra whispered. Then perhaps it is time to be brave in a different way, Hana said. Not the bravery of warriors and queens, but the bravery of someone willing to trust another person completely. Taemin stepped closer to Lyra. I know I'm asking for a lot. I know this isn't fair to you, but I also know that we both deserve a chance to be happy, to not be alone. If that means risk, then I'll take the risk. The question is, will you? Lyra looked at him for a long moment. He saw the war happening behind her silver eyes. Fear fighting with hope. Survival instinct battling against the desperate desire for connection. Finally, she spoke. If I agree to this, you must understand that your life will change completely. You will never return to your old life. You will be bound to me, to this empire, to a world of politics and danger. There will be attempts on your life. There will be those who see you as nothing but a weakness to exploit. I understand. And you must understand that I am not an easy person to care for. I am cold sometimes. I am focused on duty. I have centuries of habits and walls that will not come down easily. I'm not asking for easy. I'm asking for real. Lyra took a shaky breath. Then I will consider it. But first we must deal with the nobles who would see you dead. There are already plots forming, whispers in the halls. If I am to take this risk, I need to know that you can survive in this world. What do you need me to do? Stay alive, Lyra said, and let me figure out if I'm brave enough to do this. She left him then, walking back toward the palace with Lady Hana at her side. Taemin watched her go, his heart heavy with hope and fear in equal measure. He'd asked for the impossible, and somehow it might actually happen. But first, they both had to survive the people who didn't want them to be happy. That night, Taemin lay in his oversized bed, staring at the ceiling. Somewhere in this palace, Lyra was making the hardest decision of her long life. And somewhere else, people were plotting to make sure neither of them lived long enough to see what happened next. The universe definitely had a strange sense of humor. And it was about to get stranger. The transformation had changed him in ways he was still discovering. His hair had developed silver streaks. His eyes, once brown, now had flecks of silver in them. He could feel minds around him now. Not reading thoughts exactly, but sensing emotions and intentions. It was disorienting and useful in equal measure. He'd also stopped aging. The mirror showed him the same face he'd had at the bonding, unchanging. It would stay that way for centuries now, maybe millennia. The concept was still too big to fully understand. But the biggest change was Lyra, always present in the back of his mind. He could feel her even now, sitting in the council chambers 3 floors below, dealing with trade disputes. She was frustrated, tired, but also amused by something one of the ambassadors had said. Through their bond, he felt it all, and she felt him too. His contentment as he watched the sunrise, his lingering nervousness about his role in her empire, his absolute certainty that he'd made the right choice. The palace had slowly, grudgingly accepted him. Not all of it, not completely, but enough that he could walk the halls without guards following his every step. Enough that servants nodded to him instead of pretending he didn't exist. Enough that when he spoke in meetings, some people actually listened. Lady Hana had become an unexpected ally, teaching him Velari politics and customs. You are doing better than most expected, she told him one day. There were bets on how long you would survive. You have won me considerable money. Glad I could help with your finances, Taemin said dryly. What he hadn't expected was how much the empire would change around them. His human perspective, combined with Lyra's power, had started opening doors that had been closed for centuries. He'd suggested an alliance with a neighboring species, something the Velhari would never have considered. Lyra had pushed it through the council despite heavy opposition. The alliance was now one of the strongest in the region. He'd advocated for species equality in Velhari space, pointing out that ruling through fear only created enemies. Lyra had listened and implemented reforms that had the noble houses in an uproar, but had improved relations with dozens of subject worlds. It wasn't easy. There was pushback, resistance, attempts to undermine every change. But slowly the empire was shifting, becoming something different, something better, Taemin hoped. Then the real test came. A warlord named Vakris, who controlled a dozen systems, declared war on both the Velhari Empire and human space. His forces were massive, his fleet powerful, and his strategy brutal. He hit supply lines, destroyed colonies, and seemed unstoppable. The Velhari military wanted to crush him with overwhelming force. The human governments wanted to negotiate. Neither approach was working. Taemin sat in the war room, listening to generals argue about strategy. Through his bond with Lyra, he felt her frustration. The Velhari way was to dominate, to show strength. But it wasn't working against Vakris, who was just as strong and twice as ruthless. What if we tried something different? Taemin said. The room fell silent. The generals stared at him with varying degrees of hostility and curiosity. What do you suggest, Prince Consort? One of them asked, using his title like an insult. An alliance. Not Velhari conquering Vakris, not humans negotiating. A real alliance. Combine our strengths, human adaptability and innovation with Velhari power and resources. Hit him from angles he doesn't expect with tactics he hasn't planned for. The Velhari do not ally with others, the general said coldly. We rule or we destroy. And how's that working out? Taemin shot back. Vakris is still winning. He's taking systems. Killing people. Maybe it's time to try something new. Lyra stood, her presence commanding instant silence. The Prince Consort has a point. Our traditional methods are failing. I propose we hear his plan fully before dismissing it. The debate lasted hours, but eventually Taemin's approach won. Barely, with significant opposition. But it won. Over the next months, Taemin worked with human military leaders and Velhari commanders to create something unprecedented, a true joint force. Humans provided creative tactics and adaptable strategy. The Velhari provided raw power and advanced technology. It was messy. The two sides didn't trust each other. Cultural differences caused constant friction. But Taemin and Lyra stood in the middle, bridging the gap, forcing cooperation where none had existed before. The combined fleet met Vakris's forces in the outer reaches. It was brutal. Ships on both sides were destroyed. Thousands died. But the alliance held, and the creative combined tactics caught Vakris off guard. His fleet broke. His alliance shattered. Within 3 months, the warlord was captured, and his conquered systems were liberated. The victory celebration in the palace was subdued. Too many had died, but something important had changed. The Velhari had fought alongside allies instead of subjugating them. Humans had seen the Velhari as partners instead of threats. It was a small step, but it was a step. Taemin stood on the balcony of Lyra's quarters, looking out over the crystal city. Behind him, he felt her approach, her presence in his mind warm and familiar. You changed everything, Lyra said quietly, wrapping her arms around him from behind. When I found you in that research station, I never imagined it would lead to this. To what? A messy alliance and a lot of angry nobles? To hope. She rested her chin on his shoulder. For 200 years I ruled through strength and fear. I thought that was the only way. But you showed me something different. You showed me that vulnerability can be strength, that trust can be powerful, that connection matters more than control. Taemin turned to face her. I didn't do it alone. You're the one who had the courage to change, to take the risk. We did it together. Lyra smiled, that rare expression that still made his heart skip. You granted me a wish when you saved my life, and I chose you as yours. But you were right that day in the temple. I chose you too. That's what I didn't expect. That choosing to open my heart would change not just me, but an entire empire. So what now? Taemin asked. We keep changing things? Keep pushing for something better? Yes, it will be difficult. There will be resistance, but we have time now. She took his hand, their fingers intertwining. Centuries to reshape this empire. Centuries to build something new. Centuries together. Sounds like a plan. They stood together as the 3 moons rose over Velhari Prime, 2 beings who should never have met, whose lives had collided in the most unexpected way. A human who had shown an immortal queen what connection meant. A queen who had given a lonely pilot a reason to hope again. The empire would keep changing. There would be more struggles, more resistance, more attempts to return to the old ways. But Taemin and Lyra would face them together, bonded not just by ancient ritual, but by genuine choice. Somewhere in the palace, Lady Hana was telling anyone who would listen about how she'd been right about the human all along. Somewhere in human space, Taman's old cargo ship sat in storage, a reminder of the life he'd left behind. Somewhere in the galaxy, species that had feared the Velhari were cautiously beginning to trust them. And here on this balcony, a queen and a pilot stood together, not alone anymore, not separate. Just two people who had found each other across the stars and decided that love was worth the risk. Lyra leaned her head against his shoulder. Through their bond, Taman felt her contentment, her peace, her joy, emotions she hadn't allowed herself to feel in 2 centuries. "I am glad you chose me," she said softly. "I am glad you let me," Taman replied. The universe definitely had a strange sense of humor. But sometimes, just sometimes, it gave people exactly what they needed, even if it took an alien queen and an impossible wish to make it happen. The end of one story, the beginning of another, and all the time in the world to see where it would lead.